Cowboy humiliated for helping an old Apache lady who fell. Then she offered him her pretty daughter. Jack Turner had always been known in his small town as a cowboy with a strong back and a proud spirit. He rode his horse, Duke, through the dusty trails outside town every morning, the sun painting the horizon with bright oranges and soft pinks. The townsfolk admired his skills with cattle and the way he could handle any trouble that came his way. But Jack also carried a pride that sometimes made him careless. He enjoyed being respected, and he hated the idea of looking foolish in front of anyone. One chilly afternoon, Jack decided to take a ride further than usual. The winds whispered through the canyon, rustling the dry leaves, and Duke's hooves clattered against the rocky path. The air smelled faintly of sage and dust. As he followed the trail near the edge of the forest, Jack noticed movement near a cluster of trees. At first he thought it was an animal, but as he got closer he realized it was a person, a small figure struggling on the ground. It was an old Apache woman, her silver hair catching the sun, tangled and dust-streaked. She had apparently tripped on a root and fallen while carrying a bundle of firewood on her back. Her frail hands struggled to grasp at the ground, trying to steady herself, and she let out a soft gasp. Jack's first instinct was to keep riding past. After all, he had his pride, and stopping might make him look like he had nothing better to do. But something inside him stirred. Without thinking twice, Jack slid off Duke and rushed to her side. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked, his voice firm but gentle. The woman looked up at him with tired eyes, a mixture of surprise and gratitude. She tried to get up on her own, but the weight of the firewood made her wobble dangerously. Jack quickly dropped to one knee, lifting part of the bundle for her. "Here, let me help you," he said. Some distance away, a few townsfolk were passing by on their own horses. They saw Jack bending down to assist the old woman. A few of them snickered and shook their heads. "Look at Turner," one whispered. "Helping an old stranger, what's gotten into him?" Another added, "I thought he was a real cowboy. Guess he's soft now." Jack felt a flash of heat rise to his cheeks. He knew the whispers, but he ignored them. His focus remained on steadying the woman and setting the firewood down safely. Once she was standing, Jack brushed off the dust from her worn clothes. "You shouldn't be carrying such a heavy load alone," he said. "It's dangerous." The woman smiled faintly, showing a few missing teeth, and spoke in a calm, soft voice. "I'm grateful, young man. The path is tricky and many overlook what they shouldn't. Thank you." Jack felt a mix of relief and pride. Even though the others mocked him, he knew he had done the right thing. The old woman introduced herself as Naya. She had lived in the area all her life, walking the trails, gathering firewood, and caring for her home. Jack noticed the small details about her: the carved wooden beads on her necklace, the tiny woven patterns on her shawl, and the careful way she arranged her bundle. Everything about her showed a quiet strength that was different from the rough strength of the cowboys in town. Jack insisted on carrying the bundle for her. Naya tried to refuse, shaking her head slowly, but Jack would not hear it. "No," he said firmly. "I can manage it. Let me help you." And so he lifted the bundle, feeling the weight press against his shoulders, and started walking beside her down the narrow dirt path toward her home. As they walked, Jack tried to make small talk. "You live out here alone?" he asked. Naya nodded. "I have lived like this all my life. These woods have taught me many lessons," she said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon as if remembering things from long ago. Jack listened, fascinated by her calm demeanor and the wisdom in her voice. She spoke not just with words, but with a sense of life that carried experience, patience, and understanding. Despite the chill in the air, the walk felt warm to Jack. He realized that he was not just helping her with firewood, he was entering a world he had never fully understood. A world where kindness mattered more than pride, and where small acts of care held deep meaning. The thought made him reflect on himself. How many times had he walked past someone in need, too proud to intervene? How many times had he let mockery guide his actions instead of compassion? The townsfolk's laughter echoed faintly in his mind, but he pushed it aside. He could feel their judgment, see their smirks, but Jack had begun to understand that courage wasn't just about riding fast, herding cattle, or facing a brawl. Courage could also mean helping someone when everyone else laughed. It could mean standing firm in what you know is right, even if it makes you look foolish. Finally, they reached Naya's home, a small adobe house at the edge of the forest. Smoke rose from the chimney, curling into the sky, and Jack could smell the faint scent of herbs burning. It was simple, modest, and yet there was something inviting about it. Naya gestured for him to set the firewood down near the entrance. "Thank you," she said again, her voice filled with quiet dignity. "You have done more than many would." Jack nodded, feeling a strange mix of humility and pride. Before he left, Naya invited him to sit for a moment. "Rest," she said. "Even a strong man needs a moment to breathe." Jack hesitated, still conscious of the mocking whispers in his mind, but something about her tone, gentle yet firm, made him sit. He realized that this moment, small as it seemed, was significant. It was a moment where the world slowed, where judgment did not matter, and where kindness created a connection stronger than any boast or fight. As Jack sat, he noticed how the old woman moved with grace despite her age, how she treated every object in her home with care, how every detail told a story. He saw a life shaped by respect for nature, by patience, and by resilience. And in that moment, he felt a shift within himself, a sense that he was seeing something rare, something true, and something important that he had never noticed in the rush of his everyday cowboy life. When it was time to leave, Jack felt an unexpected reluctance. He had come to help, yes, but he had also found a kind of wisdom in Naya that he had not expected. He mounted Duke, gave Naya a respectful nod, and promised to check on her again soon. As he rode back toward town, he realized that the whispers of mockery no longer mattered. He had acted rightly, and that was worth more than any approval from those who valued pride over humanity. By the time Jack returned to the dusty streets of his town, the sun was dipping low, painting long shadows across the buildings. The townsfolk still whispered, some with smirks, but Jack barely noticed. His mind was with Naya, the old woman who had fallen yet stood with dignity, who had taught him in a few short hours a lesson he would carry forever. That true strength is measured not by how others see you, but by how you act when no one else is watching. And so, a single afternoon ride had changed Jack Turner in ways he could not yet fully understand. The encounter with the old Apache woman had humbled him, had made him reflect, and had set him on a path that would challenge his pride, test his courage, and ultimately show him the deep rewards of simple kindness. After helping Naya to her home, Jack Turner couldn't stop thinking about the old Apache woman. There was something about her that stayed with him, the calm in her eyes, the quiet strength in her voice, and the way she carried herself despite her age. As he rode back through the dusty trails toward town, his mind wandered. For the first time in a long while, Jack felt a kind of respect for someone that wasn't based on fear or reputation. It was pure admiration, born from seeing a person live with courage, wisdom, and dignity. The next morning, Jack found himself unable to resist the urge to check on Naya. He saddled Duke and rode back toward her home, taking a slightly longer path to enjoy the beauty of the forest. The sun had just risen, scattering golden light across the leaves, and birds chirped as if welcoming him to a world that existed beyond the rough streets of his town. Jack felt a strange mix of anticipation and curiosity. He wondered what kind of life Naya lived, how she managed the harshness of the wilderness, and what lessons she might quietly teach him. When he arrived, Naya was outside, sweeping the small path in front of her house. Her movements were deliberate, graceful, and full of purpose. The firewood from yesterday had been neatly stacked, and she paused to smile when she saw Jack approaching. "You've come back," she said softly, almost like it was a small delight for her to see him again. Jack dismounted and nodded. "I wanted to make sure you were all right," he replied. There was no pride in his voice this time, only genuine concern. Naya invited him inside her home. The house was small but warm, and its walls were decorated with woven blankets, handmade pottery, and carvings that reflected the Apache culture. Jack was struck by the attention to detail and beauty in every corner. Each item seemed to tell a story of hard work, patience, and the love of tradition. Naya poured him a cup of herbal tea, its aroma rich and comforting. Jack accepted, feeling both relaxed and slightly out of place in this world so different from the rough town life he was used to. As they sat together, Naya began to speak about her life. She talked about the forests, the animals, and the seasons. She shared stories of survival, explaining how the land provided for those who respected it. Jack listened intently, realizing that her life had been full of challenges, yet she faced each one with a calm strength that he had rarely seen. "The world teaches those who are willing to learn," she said. "You may think strength is only in the body, but the heart and mind are just as powerful." Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. She spoke as if she could see into his very soul, gently pointing out truths he had never considered. Over the next few hours, Jack noticed more about Naya. She moved with patience, speaking with clarity, yet never rushing. Her hands, though worn, were steady and skilled, showing years of experience. She laughed quietly at little things, like the way Duke nuzzled her hand or the soft wind that rattled the window frame. There was a quiet wisdom about her that made Jack realize how little he truly knew about life beyond the town's dusty streets. Jack also began to notice the sense of respect and care that Naya held for everything around her. The firewood was neatly stacked not just for practicality, but out of appreciation for what the earth had provided. The water she drew from the nearby stream was used sparingly, showing gratitude for every drop. Jack reflected on his own life and realized how often he had taken things for granted: food, water, shelter, even the skills he prided himself on as a cowboy. Being here in Naya's world made him see life differently. After a while, Naya suggested Jack help with a few small tasks. She asked him to carry a basket of herbs from the garden and to mend a small fence. Jack agreed, feeling a sense of purpose in the simple work. As they worked side by side, he realized that he wasn't doing it just out of politeness. He genuinely wanted to help. And Naya's subtle guidance taught him not just the tasks, but the meaning behind them. Every motion, every effort had intention. Even the smallest task could be done with care and respect. While working, Naya began to tell stories of her youth, how she learned from her elders, how the Apache traditions shaped her, and how the land demanded both courage and patience. Jack was fascinated. He had never truly thought about the deep connection between people and the land they lived on. In town, survival meant strength and quick decisions, but here, survival meant wisdom, respect, and understanding. It was a lesson Jack knew he needed to learn, and he felt honored to be given this rare insight. By mid-afternoon, the sun cast long shadows over the forest, and Jack felt a strange reluctance to leave. Naya noticed and smiled. "You don't have to leave just yet," she said. "Sit for a while, rest. Life is not always about moving forward. Sometimes it's about being present." Jack nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind her words. He had spent so much of his life moving fast, seeking approval or proving himself. But here he was learning that patience, respect, and presence were equally powerful. As they sat, Naya shared her thoughts on community, trust, and kindness. She spoke of times when strangers had helped her, and how small acts of generosity could ripple through lives in ways unseen. Jack realized that the very act he had done yesterday, helping her when she fell, was part of this ripple. He had felt embarrassed by the townsfolk's laughter, but Naya's gratitude made him see the value of his actions in a new light. True courage and honor, she seemed to say, are measured not by applause, but by the heart. Hours passed quickly, and Jack found himself feeling comfortable in a way he rarely did in town. He laughed at small jokes, listened intently to Naya's stories, and felt a connection he hadn't expected. Naya's home, her world, and her wisdom offered a perspective he didn't even know he was missing. And yet, beneath the calm and warmth, there was a subtle challenge. Jack sensed that this encounter was shaping him, pushing him to question pride, judgment, and the way he measured himself. Before leaving, Naya insisted on giving him a small token, a hand-woven bracelet. "To remember today," she said. Jack accepted it, feeling the weight of the gift, not in its material value but in the thought behind it. It was a symbol of respect, connection, and trust, something far more valuable than gold or approval from others. He realized that the day had taught him more than he could have imagined: humility, kindness, patience, and the strength of true character. As Jack rode back to town that evening, the forest glowed in golden hues. He reflected on Naya's words, her actions, and the quiet power she carried. He thought about the whispers of the townsfolk, their laughter, and how meaningless it felt now compared to the lessons he had learned. For the first time, Jack understood that true respect did not come from being admired by everyone. It came from knowing you had acted rightly, from helping when others mocked, and from being humble enough to learn from those who have walked life differently. By the time he reached the town, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows on the streets. The townsfolk were closing their shops, whispering as usual. Jack barely noticed. He had returned changed, carrying a new understanding in his heart. He had seen courage and wisdom in someone others dismissed. He had learned that honor could come from unexpected places, and that sometimes the simplest act of kindness could open the doors to lessons far greater than he had ever imagined. That night, as he tended to Duke and prepared for the next day, Jack felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He knew that his life was about to change in ways he could not yet see. The encounter with Nea had not only humbled him, it had inspired him. And deep down, he sensed that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test his heart, challenge his pride, and ultimately teach him the true meaning of courage, respect, and connection. As he approached the small adobe house, Jack noticed movement in the garden. A young woman, perhaps in her late teens, was tending to the herbs and vegetables. Her hair, dark and glossy, was tied neatly, and her hands moved with grace and skill as she carefully nurtured each plant. Jack slowed his horse, unsure if he should disturb her, but Nea's voice called from the doorway. "Come in, Jack. You are welcome." Jack dismounted and walked inside. The warmth of the home and the scent of herbs and cooked food greeted him. Nea smiled at him as he entered. "You've returned. I am pleased to see you," she said. Her tone was gentle, yet there was a weight in her words as if she knew more than she revealed. Jack nodded, feeling a mix of respect and anticipation. He was about to witness a part of life he had never imagined. After a brief moment, Nea introduced her daughter. "This is Leela," she said, her voice soft yet proud. Leela looked up from her work and met Jack's eyes. There was a quiet confidence in her gaze, a sense of curiosity, and an unmistakable intelligence. Jack felt a sudden awareness. He had met many people, but this young woman seemed to carry a presence that drew attention without demanding it. There was a balance of strength and kindness in her, similar to her mother. Nea motioned for Jack to sit. "Stay for dinner," she said. "Share the meal with us?" Jack hesitated, unsure if this was appropriate, but the warmth in her invitation was impossible to refuse. As he settled into a chair, Leela continued her tasks but occasionally glanced his way, a small smile forming on her lips. Jack felt a sense of comfort, as if he were entering not just a home but a world where respect and connection mattered more than appearances. During the meal, conversation flowed naturally. Nea asked Jack about his work, his life in town, and his thoughts on the land. Jack shared stories of riding with the cattle, working long days, and the routines of a cowboy. Nea listened intently, nodding occasionally, and Jack realized she understood more than she let on. Leela remained mostly quiet, but her attentive eyes and thoughtful gestures suggested she was absorbing every word, considering them carefully. After the meal, Nea spoke in a quiet, deliberate tone. "Jack, you have shown kindness and courage by helping me without hesitation. Many would have walked past, thinking only of their pride. You did not. For that, I am grateful." Jack felt a warmth in his chest. He had expected nothing, sought no reward, yet here was acknowledgement that mattered far more than the town's fleeting approval. Then, to Jack's surprise, Nea said something that made him blink in astonishment. "As a sign of my gratitude, I wish to offer you something precious." She paused, watching him carefully. Jack leaned forward slightly, unsure what she meant. "I wish to offer you my daughter, Leela." The words hung in the air, and Jack felt a sudden rush of confusion and disbelief. He looked at Leela, who had paused in her work, her eyes calm and steady. She did not look surprised or embarrassed, only thoughtful. Jack struggled to find words. In his town, offers like this were not made openly or with such dignity. He had expected perhaps a token of thanks or a small gift, but not this, a direct and profound gesture rooted in trust, culture, and respect. Nea noticed his hesitation. "Do not misunderstand, Jack. This is not a demand, nor is it a transaction. It is an offer made out of respect for your heart, your courage, and your character. Leela is wise, strong, and kind, much like I have raised her. She is a person of value, not an object to be claimed. I offer you a chance for partnership should your heart and intentions be honorable." Jack swallowed hard. He had never faced anything like this before. He had spent his life riding fast, taking pride in his strength, and seeking the approval of peers. Yet here was a situation that required humility, thoughtfulness, and deep respect. The offer was not just about Leela, he realized. It was about trust, culture, and the bonds that could be formed when someone acts rightly without seeking reward. For several moments, Jack could not speak. His mind raced with thoughts of the town, of his pride, and of the unexpected turn his life had taken. He glanced at Leela again, noticing the quiet strength in her posture, the intelligence in her eyes, and the calm acceptance of the situation. She seemed to understand what her mother was doing, and she did not fear it. Jack felt a mix of admiration, awe, and responsibility settle over him. I don't know what to say, he admitted finally, his voice low and honest. This is unexpected, Naya smiled gently. That is why it is an offer, not a demand. Take your time, think carefully. The right choice must come from your heart, not your pride. Jack nodded, realizing that the path forward required more than courage. It required wisdom, patience, and understanding. As he spent the rest of the afternoon at Naya's home, Jack began to observe the bond between mother and daughter. Leela moved with care, speaking only when necessary, but when she did, her words carried thoughtfulness and insight. Jack realized that her presence alone was a lesson in patience and respect. Naya, for her part, guided both Jack and her daughter with quiet authority, showing him that leadership and wisdom often come not from force, but from calm understanding. Jack stayed late into the evening. He helped with chores, carried water, and assisted with small repairs around the home. Each task gave him insight into the life Naya and Leela lived, a life of balance, care, and attentiveness. Jack reflected on his own life and realized how often he had rushed through tasks, overlooked the details, and measured success by speed or recognition. Here, he learned that strength could also be gentle, and courage could be quiet. Before leaving that evening, Jack felt compelled to speak to Naya. I am honored by your offer, he said, but I need time. I must understand what it truly means, not just for me, but for all involved. Naya nodded. That is wise, Jack. Do not rush your heart. Respect, trust, and love are not gained in haste. Consider this path carefully and act with honor. As Jack rode back toward town, the sun dipped low behind the hills, casting a golden glow over the forest. The wind carried the scent of pine and earth, and he felt a profound sense of reflection. He thought about the offer, about Leela, and about the lessons Naya had shared. The idea of pride and judgment no longer held the same importance. He understood that true character was measured not by appearances, but by the choices made when faced with unexpected responsibility and trust. That night, Jack could not sleep. He replayed every moment of the day. The calm of Naya, the presence of Leela, the weight of the offer, and the sense of trust that had been placed in him. For the first time, he felt that his actions had consequences far beyond himself, and that the measure of a man was not in his strength, but in his heart. He realized that the choice he faced was not simply about accepting or declining an offer. It was about understanding the deeper meaning of respect, partnership, and honor. Jack Turner knew that the days ahead would challenge him in ways he had never imagined. The townsfolk would not understand, and he would face ridicule once more. Yet he also knew that this encounter, with Naya and her daughter, was an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to act with integrity. And deep within him, a quiet determination began to form. He would make a decision worthy of the trust placed in him, one that honored not just himself, but the wisdom, courage, and heart of those who had shown him a new way of living. As he finally drifted into sleep, Jack dreamed not of cattle or town disputes, but of the forest trails, the warm adobe home, and the quiet, steady strength of two remarkable women. He felt a sense of anticipation and responsibility, understanding that his life had changed forever, and that the choices he made in the days to come would define the man he was truly becoming. Jack Turner returned to town the next morning, his mind heavy with thoughts of Naya and her daughter Leela. He rode Duke slowly along the dusty main street, observing the familiar shops, saloons, and houses. The sun had barely risen, casting long shadows across the street, and the town was just beginning to stir. But even as he approached, he could sense the whispers before he even heard them. Some townsfolk were gathered near the general store, talking quietly, their eyes following him with amusement and judgment. "Look who's back," one said loudly, nudging his friend. "Turner's spending too much time with that Apache woman, thinks he's some kind of hero." Another added, "I heard he's even talking about her daughter. Can you believe it?" The laughter that followed stung Jack more than he wanted to admit. He felt a familiar tension rise in his chest, the old feeling of embarrassment when others mocked him. Yet, deep down, he knew their judgment meant nothing compared to what he had experienced and learned in the forest. Jack dismounted Duke and continued walking, trying to ignore the jeers. He knew the townsfolk would not understand, could not understand. They measured strength and courage by displays of bravado, by who could shout the loudest or handle the toughest fight. They did not see the quiet, steady courage of helping someone when no one else cared. They did not understand the trust Naya had placed in him or the lessons he had learned about patience, respect, and character. Still, their mocking words lingered in his mind. Jack could feel the pull of pride, the part of him that wanted to defend himself, to prove he was not foolish. He felt torn. On one hand, he wanted to honor the lessons he had learned from Naya, to act with integrity and patience. On the other hand, the weight of public ridicule was hard to ignore. He realized that choosing the right path was not going to be easy, especially when pride and fear of judgment were involved. After a moment of reflection, Jack made a decision. He would not let the opinions of others dictate his actions. He knew that what he had learned from Naya was far more valuable than any fleeting approval from the townsfolk. With renewed determination, he rode back toward the outskirts of town, heading once again to Naya's home. The path was familiar now, lined with trees that whispered in the morning breeze, and the sunlight danced across the forest floor. Each step, each turn seemed to strengthen his resolve. When Jack arrived at Naya's home, he was greeted warmly. The smoke curled lazily from the chimney, and the gentle hum of the forest made him feel at ease. Naya stood at the doorway, smiling as if she had been expecting him. "You have returned," she said softly. "I knew you would." Jack dismounted, feeling a mixture of relief and anticipation. "I had to come back," he replied. "I needed to think about what is right, and I wanted to speak with you." Inside, Leela was tending to her herbs again, her hands steady and precise. She looked up and gave Jack a small nod, a quiet acknowledgement of his presence. Jack realized that both women carried a strength that was quiet but undeniable. They did not need to speak loudly or demand attention. Their character, their wisdom, and their presence were enough to command respect. Jack felt a deep sense of humility, recognizing that he had much to learn. Naya led Jack to a small wooden bench near the fire. "Sit," she said. "We have much to discuss." Jack obeyed, and Naya began speaking of trust, courage, and the importance of understanding one's own heart before making any decision. She explained that life often presented choices that tested character more than strength, and that the right action was not always the easiest. "You have a kind heart, Jack," she said, "but true strength lies in how you act when challenged, not when praised." Jack listened carefully, absorbing every word. He realized that Naya's offer of her daughter, Leela, was not just about a family bond. It was about trust, respect, and the connection between two people who valued honesty and integrity. It was a challenge, one that required him to reflect on his own intentions, his own character, and his willingness to act with honor even when others did not understand. After a pause, Jack spoke. "I am honored by your offer, Naya. I respect you and Leela deeply. But I also know that I must earn that trust, and I must ensure my heart is guided by the right intentions." Naya smiled gently. "That is wisdom beyond your years, Jack. Time will reveal the path, and your actions will show your character more than words ever could." Jack spent the afternoon helping with chores around the house. He carried water from the stream, repaired small sections of the fence, and assisted with preparing food for the evening. With each task, he reflected on the lessons he had learned. Simple actions required attention, care, and respect. He realized that patience and humility were as important as courage and skill. Every movement, every effort was an opportunity to practice the values he admired in Naya and Leela. As the day progressed, Jack found himself talking more with Leela. She was quiet but thoughtful, asking questions about his life, his experiences, and the lessons he had learned as a cowboy. Jack realized that she was not merely curious. She was wise beyond her years, listening carefully and considering his words. He found himself respecting her perspective, realizing that partnership required understanding, communication, and mutual respect. By late afternoon, Jack had begun to feel a deep sense of connection. The time spent with Naya and Leela was transforming him. He understood that the ridicule of the townsfolk was shallow and meaningless compared to the lessons of honor, kindness, and trust he was learning here. He felt a growing determination to act rightly, no matter the cost, and to embrace the opportunity to build a bond based on mutual respect and understanding. Before leaving that evening, Jack spoke once more with Naya. "Thank you for your guidance," he said sincerely. "I see now that the right choice requires patience, reflection, and courage of the heart. I will consider carefully, and I will act with integrity." Naya nodded. "You are learning, Jack. That is all anyone can ask. Let time guide you and let your actions reveal your character." As he rode back toward town, the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jack felt a sense of peace and clarity he had never known before. The forest, the home, and the lessons of Naya and Leela had shown him a path that went beyond pride, fear, and public opinion. He understood that true courage was not measured by physical strength or the approval of others, but by the integrity with which one lived and the respect shown to those around you. When Jack returned to town, the whispers and laughter continued, but they no longer held any power over him. He walked with a quiet confidence, knowing that his actions were guided by something far greater than appearances. He had begun to see the world differently, understanding that humility, kindness, and thoughtful reflection were as important as any skill a cowboy could possess. That night, Jack lay in his small cabin, thinking about the days to come. He knew the choice he faced was not simple. Accepting Naya's offer, or even pursuing a deeper connection with Leela, required more than desire. It required understanding, patience, and unwavering honesty. But he also felt a quiet excitement. For the first time, he saw a future where his actions could truly matter, where his heart could guide him, and where courage and integrity could define him more than any reputation in town ever could. He drifted to sleep that night with a sense of anticipation. The lessons he had learned were still fresh, but he knew that challenges lay ahead. The ridicule of the townsfolk, the unfamiliar path of trust and respect, and the responsibility of choice would test him in ways he had never imagined. Yet Jack felt ready. He had seen the strength in Naya and Leela, and he understood that true courage was born from the heart, not from the approval of others. And in that understanding, he found a sense of purpose that would guide him through the days to come. Jack Turner had spent the last few days reflecting on the lessons he had learned from Naya and observing the quiet strength of Leela. He knew that the choice he faced was significant, not just for himself, but for both mother and daughter. The town's whispers no longer mattered to him. What mattered now was honor, trust, and the chance to act with courage in a way that truly reflected who he was. He understood that accepting Naya's offer was not a casual decision. It required patience, respect, and a sincere heart. The morning was cool, with a gentle breeze rustling the trees as Jack rode toward Naya's home. Duke trotted steadily along the trail, and Jack's mind was focused and calm. He was determined to approach the day with honesty and humility. When he arrived, he saw Leela tending the herbs, her movements graceful and careful. She looked up, smiled faintly, and continued her work. Jack dismounted, feeling a mixture of respect, anticipation, and quiet nervousness. Naya greeted him warmly at the door. "You have come," she said softly, her eyes showing wisdom and understanding. "It is time to speak openly about your heart, Jack." "The choice before you is yours, and it must be made with honesty," Jack nodded. "I have thought carefully," he said. "I understand the responsibility, and I wish to act with respect and integrity. I hope to honor your trust." Naya's smile deepened. "Then sit, and we will speak together." Jack spent the morning in conversation with Naya and Leela. He asked questions, listened intently, and shared his own thoughts and fears. Leela spoke with thoughtfulness and insight, showing her understanding of both her mother's traditions and Jack's perspective. Jack realized that this was more than an offer of companionship. It was an invitation to build a partnership based on respect, trust, and shared values. He felt a growing admiration for Leela, not just for her beauty, but for her intelligence, kindness, and calm strength. After the discussion, Naya spoke gently but firmly. "Jack, you have shown patience, courage, and humility. These qualities matter more than any words or gestures. I see that your heart is true. If your intentions remain honorable, then I welcome you to pursue a bond with Leela, not as a claim, but as a partnership of respect and care." Jack felt a deep sense of gratitude and responsibility. He understood that this was a moment that required more than desire. It required devotion to values, integrity, and mutual understanding. Over the next few weeks, Jack spent his time learning more about the ways of Naya's household and the traditions she valued. He helped with daily chores, tended the land, and continued to gain insight into the strength of patience, respect, and thoughtful action. With each passing day, Jack grew closer to Leela, finding in her a companion who challenged him to be better, encouraged him to think deeply, and inspired him with her wisdom and kindness. Their conversations were filled with laughter, reflection, and shared understanding. The townsfolk continued their whispers, some more skeptical than before. "Look at Turner," they said. Spending all his time with that Apache family, he's changed. Others were curious, seeing the transformation in Jack's demeanor, but Jack no longer sought approval from them. He had found a deeper sense of fulfillment, a purpose that came from acting rightly and nurturing relationships based on respect. He realized that true strength was not in appearances or the judgment of others, but in character, courage, and compassion. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Jack and Leela walked together along the forest path. They spoke quietly, sharing stories of their lives, dreams, and lessons learned. Jack admired her ability to remain calm in difficult situations, her intelligence, and her empathy for others. Leela admired Jack's courage, honesty, and willingness to reflect on his actions. Together, they began to understand the meaning of partnership, supporting each other, learning from one another, and building a connection grounded in respect and trust. Jack realized that he had been humbled and transformed by the experiences of the past weeks. He had learned that courage was not measured by strength alone, but by the choices one made when faced with ridicule, challenge, or uncertainty. He had learned that humility and respect were as powerful as skill and bravery. And he had learned that love and partnership were built not on superficial attraction or societal expectations, but on understanding, shared values, and sincere care for another person. As the days turned into weeks, Jack became a regular presence in Naya and Leela's home. He continued to help with chores, share meals, and learn the traditions and wisdom of their lives. Naya guided him with quiet authority, while Leela shared moments of laughter, insight, and companionship. Jack felt himself growing, not just as a cowboy, but as a man who understood the deeper meaning of honor, trust, and connection. Eventually, Jack and Leela grew close enough to recognize a bond of mutual respect and affection. It was not a rushed or impulsive connection. It was built slowly, carefully, and with full understanding of each other's hearts. Jack found in Leela a companion who complemented his strengths and challenged his weaknesses. Leela found in Jack a partner who valued her intelligence, kindness, and wisdom. Together, they began to imagine a life that blended courage, compassion, and shared purpose. The townsfolk, who had once mocked Jack for helping Naya, began to notice the transformation in him. They saw a man who had grown in humility, patience, and integrity. Some were surprised, others curious, but Jack no longer cared about their opinions. He understood that true respect came not from the approval of others, but from the way one lived, acted, and treated those around them. He had earned a respect far deeper than any fleeting praise or recognition from the town. One evening, as the sky glowed with the colors of sunset, Jack spoke with Naya. "I am grateful," he said sincerely, "for your guidance, for your trust, and for the lessons you have taught me. I see now what it means to act with honor and integrity, and I hope to continue living by these principles." Naya nodded, her eyes gentle but filled with pride. "You have learned well, Jack. You have shown that courage, patience, and respect are the true measures of a man. Now it is time to walk your path with the wisdom you have gained." In the months that followed, Jack and Leela continued to build their partnership. They worked together, learned together, and shared a growing bond of affection and understanding. Their relationship was not defined by urgency or expectation, but by mutual respect and shared values. Jack had learned to balance his pride with humility, his courage with thoughtfulness, and his actions with consideration for others. Leela had found a partner who valued her heart, mind, and spirit, and together they began to envision a future filled with respect, love, and shared purpose. As the story of Jack Turner, Naya, and Leela spread through the town, people began to see a different kind of strength. They saw that true courage was not in boastful acts or displays of power, but in helping others without expectation, acting with integrity, and building relationships based on respect and understanding. Jack had been humiliated in the eyes of some, yet he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more honorable than ever. The town slowly began to recognize that the lessons he had learned were far more valuable than ridicule or gossip. Years later, Jack would remember the day he helped Naya as the turning point in his life. It had taught him humility, patience, and the value of true connection. His relationship with Leela had blossomed into a partnership of love, trust, and mutual respect. And the lessons he learned from the quiet strength of Naya and Leela had shaped him into a man who understood that the greatest measure of courage was not in defeating others, but in living rightly, acting with honor, and embracing the opportunities to help and respect those around him. Jack Turner's life had changed forever. The experience had shown him that true strength came from the heart, that respect and humility were as important as courage and skill, and that the bonds formed through trust and understanding were the most valuable of all. He had faced ridicule, uncertainty, and challenge, yet he had emerged with wisdom, love, and a deeper understanding of what it meant to live a meaningful life. And as he looked toward the future, walking beside Leela, he knew that the lessons of the past would guide him always, shaping him into a man of honor, courage, and lasting connection.